What if the person you spend your entire life running from is yourself? We chase success, status, and validation, but how often do we stop long enough to ask why? Most people are terrified of silence because silence makes them confront their own reflection. And yet, that's where all growth begins. Michel de Montaigne understood this over 400 years ago. He wasn't a warrior, or a king, or a prophet. He was a man who locked himself in a quiet tower to think, to write, to understand himself. And in doing so, he discovered a kind of mental freedom that most people never reach: the ability to live well within one's own mind. This isn't just philosophy. It's a blueprint for modern self-mastery, the ability to stay calm in chaos, find clarity in confusion, and create purpose from pain. Montaigne believed that wisdom doesn't come from knowing more, but from knowing yourself more deeply. In today's world of endless noise, that's revolutionary. Because the real battle isn't fought out there. It's fought in here. Inside your thoughts, your reactions, your beliefs about who you are. Over the next 20 minutes, we're going to explore 6 timeless lessons from Montaigne's essays, translated into the modern language of mindset, discipline, and resilience. Each lesson is a mirror, showing you where your peace is stolen, where your potential sleeps, and how to rise above the noise to live with strength, balance, and self-awareness. If you've ever felt stuck, lost, or unsure of your direction, this is your reminder that growth doesn't always come from doing more. Sometimes it comes from sitting still and finally seeing yourself clearly. Let's begin. Lesson 1: The power of honest self-reflection. Montaigne once wrote, "The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to yourself." That line might sound poetic, but it's really a challenge to confront the parts of yourself you've avoided. In his essays, Montaigne dissected his fears, his habits, even his contradictions. He wrote about his flaws as freely as his strengths. Why? Because he believed self-awareness is the foundation of freedom. Most people live in reaction mode, scrolling, comparing, escaping. They mistake distraction for peace and busyness for purpose. But when you pause long enough to observe your own mind, without judgment, you start to see the invisible patterns driving your choices, the insecurities, the emotional triggers, the false stories you've been telling yourself for years. This isn't comfortable work. It's not supposed to be. Self-reflection is like shining a light into the attic of your soul. You'll find things you'd rather not see. Lesson 2: Acceptance, the art of inner balance. Montaigne once said, "My life has been full of terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened." That sentence could have been written yesterday. We live in a time where anxiety rules, where we suffer more in imagination than in reality. We replay mistakes, predict disasters, and build invisible prisons out of what-ifs. Montaigne saw this centuries ago. He realized that life is unpredictable, and our only real control is over our response. So instead of resisting the flow of life, he practiced acceptance, not passive surrender, but active balance. Acceptance doesn't mean you stop striving, it means you stop fighting reality. You acknowledge what is before you try to change it. That's how calm is built, not by eliminating chaos, but by finding stillness within it. Every time you say, "This shouldn't have happened," or "It's not fair," you're arguing with the past. But the past doesn't negotiate. The world moves forward with or without your permission. Acceptance is how you move with it, gracefully, not resentfully. In mindset terms, this is emotional discipline. It's how you stop wasting energy on things you can't control and start mastering what you can. You can't control the weather, but you can control your reaction. You can't control others' opinions, but you can control your peace. You can't control what happens, but you can always control who you become through it. Modern reflection. Today, acceptance means learning to release, to breathe through disappointment instead of drowning in it.
Lesson 3. The courage to be imperfect. Montaigne once admitted, "I am an imperfect human being, and that is enough." In a world obsessed with perfection, performance, and image, he found peace in imperfection. He wasn't trying to impress, he was trying to understand. Montaigne believed that freedom begins the moment you stop pretending. He dissected his own flaws, doubts, and failures, not to punish himself, but to learn from them. And that honesty gave him something most people never achieve: authentic power. We live in an age of filters and facades, where people project perfection and hide their humanity. But when you hide your imperfections, you also hide your potential. Growth only happens when you're real enough to admit, "I don't have it all figured out." Lesson 4. The mind as a mirror. Montaigne once wrote, "A man is never hurt but by his own opinion." He meant that most of our suffering doesn't come from reality, it comes from our interpretation of reality. The event isn't the enemy. The story you attach to it is. Someone insults you, it's not the words that hurt, it's the meaning you choose to give them. You fail at something, it's not the failure that destroys you, it's the belief that failure defines you. Montaigne saw this long before psychology had a name for it. He understood that the mind is a mirror, reflecting back whatever you focus on. If you stare at fear, you'll see fear. If you stare at gratitude, you'll see strength. Your thoughts don't just describe your world, they create it. That's why emotional mastery begins with awareness. You can't control every thought that enters your mind, but you can control which ones you feed. That's discipline. That's mental resilience. Whenever he faced discomfort, Montaigne didn't suppress it, he observed it. He'd ask himself, "Why does this disturb me? What belief lies behind this pain?" That question transforms emotion into insight. Modern reflection. In today's terms, this is mindfulness with a warrior's edge, choosing to be aware instead of reactive. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when a goal falls apart, when life gets heavy, pause and say, "This is not good or bad, it simply is." How I respond gives it meaning. Every time you do that, you train your mind to stay balanced under pressure, and that balance is power. Action step. For the next 3 days, track your emotional reactions. When something triggers you, write down the story your mind created about it. Then challenge that story. Ask, "Is this true, or is this just my interpretation?" That's how you turn chaos into clarity. When your mind becomes your ally, not your enemy, you're unstoppable. Lesson 5. Solitude and self-mastery. Montaigne wrote much of his wisdom alone, in a circular stone tower surrounded by books. He wasn't hiding from the world, he was studying it from a higher vantage point. He discovered that solitude, when used correctly, isn't loneliness, it's alignment. He said, "The greatest company is that of one's own mind, if it be good." Modern life fears silence. We crave constant connection, constant noise, constant motion. But growth demands moments of separation, not to escape life, but to understand it. Solitude gives you the space to hear your own thoughts before the world drowns them out. When you learn to be comfortable alone, you stop being controlled by other people's opinions. You stop chasing approval. You start acting from conviction instead of consensus. That's how leaders are built. That's how discipline is forged. But solitude isn't easy. When you turn off the noise, the mind starts to speak, and often, it says things you've avoided hearing. That's the test Montaigne understood. The path to inner strength runs through self-conversation. Ask yourself, what am I running from? What do I really want? What values am I living by? Those questions build a foundation no storm can shake. Modern reflection. Today, solitude doesn't require a tower, it just requires boundaries. Turn your phone off for 30 minutes. Go for a walk without music. Sit in stillness.
Lesson 6. Living wisely, turning knowledge into action. Montaigne once wrote, "We can be knowledgeable with another man's knowledge, but we cannot be wise with another man's wisdom." He meant that reading, listening, and studying are valuable, but they mean nothing if you never live what you learn. Wisdom, to Montaigne, was never about collecting ideas, it was about applying them. And that's where so many people fall short today. They consume endless content about mindset, discipline, and success, but they never take the next step. Information is everywhere. Implementation is rare. Real growth begins the moment knowledge becomes action. Montaigne's essays weren't just observations, they were experiments. He tested his thoughts through daily living, through failure, through reflection. That's how he developed calm under pressure, patience in hardship, and clarity in chaos. He lived his philosophy, not perfectly, but consciously. That's the mindset we must reclaim today. Live like a learner, not a collector. Each day, choose one idea, just one, and practice it. If you study discipline, act disciplined for 1 hour. If you study gratitude, express it out loud today. If you study calm, find it in a stressful moment. Wisdom grows through repetition of awareness. And the person who lives what they learn will always outgrow the one who only listens. Modern reflection. In a world obsessed with knowing, dare to be someone who embodies. Make every lesson a muscle, not just a mantra. That's how philosophy becomes power. Action step. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, what is one idea from this that I can apply today? Don't wait until tomorrow, start living it now. Because the gap between knowing and doing is where most potential dies. Montaigne didn't aim to master the world, he aimed to master himself. That's the ultimate limitless mindset. Because when you live wisely, every challenge becomes your teacher, and every day becomes your chance to rise.
You've now walked through 6 lessons that Michel de Montaigne discovered centuries ago, yet somehow they feel written for today. Because human nature hasn't changed. The tools are different, the noise is louder, but the inner battles are the same. Lesson 1. Honest self-reflection. Growth starts the moment you stop running from yourself. Lesson 2. Acceptance. Peace isn't found in control, but in surrendering what can't be controlled. Lesson 3. The courage to be imperfect. Every flaw faced honestly becomes strength. Lesson 4. The mind as a mirror. Master your interpretation and you master your emotions. Lesson 5. Solitude. The quiet moments are where transformation happens. Lesson 6. Living wisely. Knowledge only becomes power when it's lived. Together, These 6 truths form the Montaigne Method, a philosophy of living built on reflection, acceptance, authenticity, awareness, solitude, and action. It's not a formula for perfection. It's a roadmap for inner freedom. In a world that constantly pushes you to be more, Montaigne reminds you to simply be. To live with clarity instead of chaos. To replace comparison with curiosity. To trade performance for peace.